Welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to summarize you read an action movie and science fiction called Power Without Limits. A boy named Andrew prepares for school, but he is interrupted by his drunken father, who try to enter his room, but Andrew doesn't open the door for her. He tells her that he bought a camera and now on ahead will record everything. Andrew says goodbye of his mother, who is very sick and you need special medication for him. His cousin, mad about him, tells him that now he will record everything, and Amat seems strange to him. Idea arrive at school and Andrew records a tour of her until he is interrupted by some guys who always they beat and pester him again in his house. Watches the recordings of his day. But that's where his dad comes in, very upset. He hits and insults for not having opened the door that morning. Andrew goes with his cousin to a party that night, but when they arrive, Matt leaves for his account and Andrew starts recording the whole party on it. One boy confronts and tells him not to record his. Andrew's girlfriend replies that he doesn't. He was recording, but the guy wasn't. He listens and hits him while he cries. Out of the party comes Steve, popular boy from school, who asks to record something that I killed, and they found him in the forest. They arrive with Mateo. They observe a hole that emits a strange sound. Steve can't resist his curiosity and enters. The hole is followed by Matt and finally also Ender and you. While they walk through the cave, they notice a species of luminous rock approach and touch it. But in that the stone changes color and Steve starts to bleed after sun pushed by a strange force, and the camera stops recording. 3 weeks pass after this, and now Andrew with his new cam is recorded together with Steve and kills by throwing himself and hitting himself with a baseball until Andrew achieves stop her with the mind of him. Start to practice your new powers, telekinesis, but Andrew controls them more easily. Return to the place where they acquired their powers, but notice that now the cave hole is obstructed. In addition to the policeman, they ask to move away because it is an area dangerous. The days go by and they talk about what they have noticed, that his powers have become more strong with time and practice. Although that causes them to bleed from the nose, the more effort they make, they will a supermarket and start to put in practice and powers, bothering people, moving their carts and avoiding stuffed animals and pushing people in the parking lot. Steve wants to demonstrate what he has practiced and changes a car from parking spot. However, the effort makes it bleed when they go from return. Notice that a driver insistent begins to bother them, but in that Andrew does not measure his strength and draws. On the way to the van they stop and they see the car is sinking. Steve, he doesn't think about it and he throws himself for later pull the unconscious driver out of the water. Very upset, Matt argues with Andrew and says it's time to make rules now that the powers of him are becoming every stronger and can be dangerous. Andrew doesn't like the idea, but Steve and they decide that this is how it will have to be. Another day they agree to see Steve, but as soon as they arrive at the meeting place, they notice that Steve is not there. They turn to upstairs and they see it floating. Steve tells them it's not as difficult as it looks. Ask them to do it, and Matt and Andrew do it. They start trying. After a lot practice, perfect it and are encouraged to fly through the clouds, begin to do maneuvers and even play soccer. All it was going well until out of nowhere a plane and out of control Steve. Fortunately, Andrew manages to catch him and saves him. When comes to Matt, thanks Andy me for save Steve, since he wasn't so quick to catch him the next day. While They walked. Matt tells them that they have to go. Andrew and Steve stand aside. Go to the city but arrive at the house of Casey, the girl he likes from high school. Tries to tell her that she likes him. But Matt is very arrogant and Casey better ask him to go to the same time while they are resting upstairs of a building. Steve tells him about the family problems of him to Andrew Halo. For his part, he confesses that he had never had friends besides that, always has felt separated by all. Steve invites him to participate with him in the talent show that will be in the Andrew doesn't like school very much idea, but Steve ends up convincing him. The day of the talent show arrives and it's Andrew's mom tells him that she looks very well. Andrew tells him that Steve lent him clothes and his mom likes that he has good friends. While he talks more with Casey, it's time for Andrew and Steve do his show with the help of his powers. Achieve the admiration of his partners when performing magic tricks, juggling and acrobatics that without their powers would be impossible for them to do. After the show they go to the end party. Of course Andrew is amazed that now everyone greets and congratulates them. In addition to that, a girl flirts with him and finally he feels that he will succeed in having relations with someone else at the same time. Meets with that if he apologizes for being arrogant. Casey accepts his. She apologizes and tells him to go somewhere else. Steve gives him the camera and he wants to film Andrew having his first time, but when he gets to the bedroom he notices that I throw up the girl for having drunk so much. Andrew gets very upset with Steve for recording it and he thinks he made fun of him. The next day his dad enters his room and find the camera of and you start to scold him for having a $500 camera and not cooperating to buy his mom's medicine. Claims for the money he spent on the camera and Andrew tells him he didn't spend his money. They keep arguing until his dad starts hitting him, but this once Andrew resists and with the help of his powers attack his dad. At that moment Matt starts bleeding for no reason. Gets a call from Steve but decides do not answer. On the other hand, Steve searches and finds Andrew flying in the middle of a storm. Steve tries to comfort him to come down because of the dangerous weather, but Andrew becomes hostile and asks let Steve go. Try to convince him, but in that he is struck by lightning. Provoked by Andrew, we noticed that Steve if he died from Andrew's lightning. Although they considered it an accident by the storm at that time, Matla claims Andrew for what he did, but Andrew doesn't hear him and flies off. There days later Andrew goes to school. And now it's everyone's mockery for having threw up on the girl at the party, but already fed up with the teasing he follows the boy who he always bothers him, and when he calls him he pulls out his teeth without thinking afterwards. From school and I start to notice ideas about something of a higher kind, and believes that he can belong to that kind since his powers have been constantly increased, and demonstrates in front of the camera contracting a car with the power of him more. Arrives at the Andrew's room and again confront for what Andrew did in the school, but Andrew challenges him and tells him that he is the strongest and will follow him. Being the next day while his dad is away, Andrew steals his fire suit and he tries to rob some gang members, but they recognize that he is Andrew, and Andrew he attacks them and then takes away his money, and that is not enough money for his mom's medicines, and is about to rob a store. Arrives at the store, attacks the manager and steals everything. The money runs away from there, but after he also comes out the manager with a gun. Andrew takes the gun away from him, but he is shoot and blast Andrews. He is unconscious in the hospital and comes to his dad to see him, tells him that his mom just died because she went out to look for him and begins to claim him for the death of his mother in addition to the problems that he always causes, but in that Andrew reacts very angry and blow up the room at the same time. The more he celebrates, he goes to a party birthday, he starts to bleed a lot. Now he knows that when that happens it's because Andrew is causing something, sees the news and watch the explosion in the hospital and goes with Casey to the hospital. When they arrive at the hospital, Matt notices that Andrew comes out of between the smoke holding his daddy in it. Andrew lets go and Matt manages to catch him. To later leave it safe, they return to get in the car, and while they look for him, they notice that Andrew is out of control and inadvertently to Andrew the finds. First he picks up his car and the leads to the top of a building in that Andrew's to bed, but while the car falls, along with Casey arrives more and manages to get Casey before the impact puts her to safe and going to calm down Andrew. Retreats to reassure him and make him enter. Right, but Andrew tells him that he is higher and stronger than anyone and that the world will know soon. In that, Audio takes advantage of Matt's distraction and attack him with a bus, but do this causes Andrew to fall exhausted. Matt appears again, now yes annoying, attacks him. They begin to fight, they go through walls, destroy buildings, and they throw cars until Andrew gets hit with a lamp and falls unconscious without. However, at that moment the police arrive and Andrew gets up, a copla shoot mate in the hand, and Andrew annoys and attacks them again. They start to struggle until Matt and Andrew fall and the police surround them again. They order him to stay on the ground, but Andrew gets up. He asks him not to hurt them, but in that, they open fire and Andrew stops the bullets and then counterattack the police. Matt the damage they have given is causing and asks him to stop, but Andrew starts to destroy everything and Ma takes the difficult decision to stop it and go through it unexpectedly with the spear of a statue. Again the policemen surround and approach little by little, but more he realizes and runs away from their days. Later more record a goodbye life. For Andrew tells him that he had to do the right thing and that he knows that, and you never was a bad person, promises you that now he will use his powers to help people and he will try to find out which one was the cause of the origin of his powers. Lastly, Moore shows us that he traveled to Tibet in honor of Andrew's sense. That was the place where Andrew always he wanted to go. He says goodbye to Andrew again and Steve, and that's how this one ends. Movie. Remember that if you liked him today's summary, I invite you to subscribe and give me a like, also to activate the bell so that you don't miss any of these videos. Thanks, and see you in the next recap. See you soon.